These are all the books I read in February, starting with Wicked. I read this after I watched the movie, and I'm sure many of you know what it's about. But pretty much, it's about the story of the Wicked Witch of the West and why she's so evil. The book was written in 1995, and the play was written in 1996. So, the book is the main vibes. Elphaba is a witch who has green skin, and she struggles with racism her whole life. And then she goes to a magic school called Shiz in Oz. She meets Glinda, who is this snotty, posh bitch, and they become friends and fight racism and stereotypes. Elphaba meets the Wicked Witch, she meets the Wizard of Oz and realizes his truth, and she becomes the Wicked Witch of the West. This book is by Gregory and I gave it a 3 out of 5 because it was pretty good, but it was just good. First of all, I hated Bach so much. I hated him in the movie. I hated him more in the books. And he needs to learn boundaries. And then Dr. Dillamon's story, I liked it more in the book than I did the movie. And I never watched the play. I watched the movie first. So, that is also safe to say I have no idea how the play or the movie is going to adapt the second half of the book. And the movie is based off the play. I also liked that they made Elphaba black in the movie. I don't know anything about the play. I like that they made her black in the movie because a lot of her storyline is racism, and I think a black character can show that perfectly. And I don't remember her name. I think it's like Cynthia. She did amazing as the actor of Elphaba. Oh my god, she did amazing. Nanny was cool as fuck. I love how she called Elphaba out all the time. And I still don't like Glinda. I didn't like her after the movie, and I don't like her now. I thought Ariana Grande was a great casting for her. I know some people wanted Dove Cameron, but I think Ariana Grande did amazing. And I'm pretty sure she did musical stuff in the beginning of her career. So, she did good. What was I saying? Oh yeah, but I don't like Glinda. She's a snotty bitch. She's just so annoying. She's like the people I went to high school with. And I don't like it. I understand the story and the character growth, and it's good and all, but I don't like her. The prince! What? Why did they make him white in the movie? And I think he was white in the play. I looked it up, but this was at the beginning of February. Why did they make him white? In the book, Bach clearly says he is the skin color of shit. Which, this is another reason why I hate Bach. Why the fuck would he say that when Elphaba is standing there and she has insecurities about her skin color because it's green, and then he's talking shit about someone who has skin color the color of poo? That is so racist and so inconsiderate of his friend. Anyways, I also think it is important that the prince is black because when he has his relationship with Elphaba, they can connect. The philosophy club plot, that was not in the movie, and I am so glad, because what the literal fuck was that? Okay, it was useless, was unimportant, so dumb. I felt like the wizard was like America. I can't get into that more, but I will in the spoiler section. He was America. The water was never explained. Why did water hurt Elphaba? I don't know. I do understand there's some fantasy novels where the magic system just isn't explained and you just have to accept it. And usually I'm fine with those, but when you're explaining so much, they explained why she was green, why animals were the way they were, animals were just animals, but they never explained the water. So I don't know. That was a little goofy to me. Next book was Bunny by Moria Awad. I DNF'd it. It wasn't that interesting to me. It was, from what I got, because I only listened to like a couple chapters, it's a book about this girl in college, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And there's this friend group who call themselves Bunny, and they're like the cool girls, they're like the mean girls, and the main character wants to be a part of them, and she gets invited to their party, but I'm pretty sure some witchcraft shit ends up happening. I can't remember. But then I didn't read that part, but I looked it up. But what I read was she goes to their party and they're reading smut stories, and they're like, do you have any smut? And I think she makes up a story about losing her virginity. I can't remember if it's real or not, but I don't like smut, and I hated the girls. They were so annoying. I knew I couldn't get through this book. Oh, and I felt like it was useless smut, and I don't like useless smut. Anyways, the next book I actually read was Fate Breaker by Victoria Aveyard, and it is so good. I got her signature. Okay, it's in the other book. I got this book because it was the British version and it said it was coming with an exclusive chapter, and I didn't know the English version was coming with an exclusive chapter. So I just have two, but it's the most beautiful sprayed edges. Oh my god! So yeah, let me go get the other book. This is the English version, or the American version. It's purple instead of red. I like the red vibes so much more. Like, it makes sense. I don't know why they did purple. Naked edges, but I have all my tabs. I did annotate it. See, I like to do these little drawings. Anyways, one thing about Victoria Aveyard's books is that some pages or some chapters I annotate like every page, and some I don't annotate at all. I feel like you can tell when she's loving her writing and when she's not. I got this one signed. It's so cool. Yeah, I'm gonna hold up the red one because I like it more. But yeah, Fate Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. This was her second series, and this is the last book in the trilogy, and it is about, it's like Guardians of the Galaxy mixed with, I think it was Game of Thrones. I get Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings mixed up because I don't watch them. This guy is taking over the realm of Allward. Her naming wasn't very creative. The first book is called Realm Breaker, and the second book is called Blade Breaker, and this book is called Fate Breaker. So it's, I don't know, her namings weren't very creative, but that's fine. So it's just this group of people who don't really work together very well, and are like, they don't seem like the people who would save the realm, but they do. They have to team up and save it. And there's like a teenage girl. So I'm pretty sure it's a YA fantasy, but it might be NA, new adult, but I don't know. Anyways, like 18-year-old girl has to save the world. It's pretty awesome. I like the book. I mean, I love the author, so that's more why I'm dedicated to it, but I really liked this series. Given that, this took me almost a year to read. It was so hard. I never read pages. I always do audiobook, so I think that was a big reason. But then, like, once I got into it, I could read it more. There were just some parts where I was extremely bored because the pacing is so slow. It's 630 pages. That's insane, even though most of my books are around that. It was just rough. Oh, I gave it a 4 out of 5. The love stories were amazing. I loved it. I think there were like 3 or something. They were all good. They all had me kicking my feet and squealing, drawing little hearts and hee-hees. They were so cute and so perfect. I kinda didn't like how the villain was defeated. We'll explain that in the spoiler section. I loved the plot twist. It was amazing. I feel like I should have seen it coming, especially because Victoria Aveyard is known for writing her betrayal. I wouldn't say known, because I guess she's not very known, but I feel like she's known for her betrayals, like crazy betrayals. So I should have seen it coming. And this person was obviously sus when looking back on the story, but I didn't see it coming. It wasn't sus. Okay, and the rest are spoilers. So that's all I have for this. Again, it was a pretty good book. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I didn't give it a 5 because it didn't speak to my soul. And I did think about giving it a 3 just because it was so hard to read. But once I got to the end, I was like, this is amazing. I'm in love again. I think Victoria Aveyard always does that. Like, in the middle of the books, it's rough. But then there's just these moments where it's like, this is amazing. Next up is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I love this book. I was rereading it for the first time. I can't believe it took me this long to do it for the first time because I read it years ago. And I love this author so much. I want to own all her books. I think I mentioned her in my last video too. But she's just amazing. I love her with all my heart. And this book. So it's a romance fantasy, or a romantasy, which I'm not really into, but I don't know, maybe I'm getting into romance now, I'm realizing. Addie LaRue, she makes a deal with the devil, and where she pretty much can't die. And so she lives 300 years, but no one remembers her. It's like a not in sight, not in mind kind of thing. So like, once she's out of your sight, you don't remember her. Generally, it's flexible. Like, if she's hanging out with people, they, like, turn around or something, I don't think she disappears. Or, like, if you close your eyes and you forget. I don't know. It doesn't really go that far in depth. No one remembers her. And then she falls in love with this guy who also made a deal with the devil. It's pretty amazing. I absolutely love it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 because I feel like this did impact my soul. It was just so cute. All the relationships I loved. And it had art history aspects, which I'm obsessed with. I'm in college right now and I'm majoring in art history, and I read this book in high school because I was taking an art history class and my creative writing teacher was talking about it, and I was like, this seems like the most amazing book ever, and it is. I listened to a podcast about the author talking to another guy, and they said no spoilers, so I feel like this is fine to say because they mentioned it, but the part where Addie says she saw elephants, like, the devil, he's called the Dark in this book, so the Dark is talking to her, and he's like, give me your soul now, give up on living, and she's like, no, because I saw elephants, and that was amazing. And that is literally what I strive for in my life. I want to feel that excitement of seeing elephants and of living my life to the fullest. And that is exactly why I want to travel the world. I don't want to be stuck here. I need to see elephants in all the aspects. Oh, another thing with the art, I love how it proved art leaves a mark. Because art history is literally all about marks left by people. The caves, the cave paintings with the first art we ever found on the caves, in the caves in Paris, Apollo caves or something like that. It is all about people leaving their mark. In this book, Addie can't leave her mark, but art leaves the mark. All the art pieces shown in the beginning of some chapters is about leaving her mark, which is amazing. The big question about this book is, what would I give my soul for? I thought I had this whole month to think about it, but I totally forgot. So what I would give my soul for is tricky. One character said to be happy with herself, but then you got to think of, it's kind of a genie in a bottle. You have to say the words right. And if I was happy with myself, I would never change. And what if I needed to change? But I don't know, happiness is cool. When I think of a superpower, I want to know all the languages in the world, but I wouldn't sell my soul for that. When I was in high school, I'd definitely sell it for happiness. But I'm happier now, so I don't know. I guess in this case, Addie and her love interest sell their souls when they're in times of desperation. So when I was in time of desperation, I think I would sell my soul for my mom to love me. Anyways, the next book was The Maid by Nita, Prose. I think that's how I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. So this book is about a maid who's totally autistic coded, and she finds someone murdered in the room she has to clean, and she tries to solve the mystery. And it's so cute. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I loved it. I feel some kind of protection for her throughout the book, which I think is what the author portrays or like wants you to feel, because it doesn't state she's autistic, but I'm pretty sure she's autistic. She doesn't connect the dots easily, so when people are using her, I'll be like, no, let me help you, baby girl. But in the end, you learn that she never needed protection, and she somewhat knew what she was doing, and I love that. I love an independent girly. I didn't like the cliche romance at the end. That I felt like they worked together perfectly, but it just felt so forced and so cliche. And in the second book, they're married. I wish that they focused on it more. Maybe in the second book, I don't know. There was no room in the second book, but my point is, it was too forced. They're perfect together. They're cute, but there was really no satisfying lead up to their relationship. So yeah. The twist was amazing though. I didn't expect it, and I really enjoyed it. I knew something was coming because I still had an hour left, but I absolutely love how it worked out. And I love how in the beginning the main character, Molly, feels so alone, and then she finds people that make her feel not alone. By the end, she has all these people with her, and it feels so wholesome. I love it. Next book was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is a classic. I'm sure many of you know what it is, but it's pretty much about if America was ran by more Christian values. And so the women are just very controlled, and the handmaid is a woman whose only purpose is to produce and have sex. So America's struggling with an infertility crisis, and these handmaids are women who committed sins, but because they're fertile, they're given more chances. The commander is who's in charge of them, and they just have sex with the commander, and then they have a baby, and it goes to the wife of the commander. And they wear red. That's how you differentiate them. That's why the cover is like this. I just realized that I didn't even put my rating in during this review, but I rated it a 5 out of 5 because it was amazing, and I feel like I can reread it and get a new lesson every single time. Our main character is named of Fred because her commander is named Fred, so she's of Fred's. Now, in the movie or the TV series adaptation, they give her a name of June. It's never stated in the book, but apparently Margaret Atwood said she felt like June fit the character and she liked it, but she didn't have a name, I guess. Oh, I felt like it was a timeless read. I didn't feel like I was reading in one specific decade, and I feel like it is a necessary read. It really does have a lot of lessons, and it's definitely a reread. I know I missed some lessons, and a good annotation book. So I need to buy it so I can annotate it. There was a very powerful line or quote in it that I loved that was like, I tell, therefore I am. And I'll go into it more in the spoilers, but I absolutely love it because the whole book is her story, her tell. I didn't realize this in the end of the book, but apparently like people are reading her story. Anyways, so I think that's an important line. And it comes from the famous quote, I think, therefore I am. I can't remember by what philosopher. Maybe I should look that up. But a philosopher says it, and he's kind of philosophizing on like what defines existence. And he's like, I can think for myself, therefore I exist. I am a human. You know, that applies to animals. They think for themselves. So I think that's just kind of what he was going for, which can be argued with the whole abortion thing, and there are abortion arguments a little bit in this book, so that's cool. Oh, another thing is Fred is connecting with this other person in the family that owns her. There's another person in that, and she's connecting with them, and she says, I tell him my real name, and I feel that, therefore I am. So by giving him her real name, she feels like she exists. So that ties into the I think, therefore I am quote. She's like, I tell you my real name, and therefore I am. I exist. I am not forgotten. Which is really important because throughout this tell, she talks about people in her past, and she doesn't say their name. Which is ironic because it's like this is a tell intended to live and like through history and tell history, but she doesn't want the legend of her family members. She wants those to be personalized to her. Oh, and I love that just tells the power of a name in humanizing. I watched this YouTube video and it was about therapists reacting to Spirited Away, and when Yubaba takes away Chihiro's name and makes it just into Sen, which I'm pretty sure is a number. It just talks about the importance of a name and how it gives you humanization and individuality by having your name, and taking that away from someone is like another step to dehumanize them. They have this amazing quote that references Sylvia Plath's quote in the Bell Jar. It says, I am still. Now, Sylvia Plath's quote is, I am. She uses it to be like, my heart is beating, therefore I am alive. I am. But then Margaret Atwood uses it of Fred to say, I am still. She's like, I am still alive. Even though this existence sucks, I am still alive. Which is amazing. I love it. The next one was Acceptance by Jeff VanderMeer, and it is supposed to be the last book in his Southern Reach trilogy, but he wrote another one, and I'm excited to read it. I love this trilogy because they all start with A's, and it's so satisfying. We have Authority, no we don't, Annihilation, Authority, Acceptance, and the next one is Absolution. So the whole series actually is about this anomaly taking over a shore and an island, and people are going into, they call it Area X. So they're going into Area X to study it and figure out what it is and why it's here. It's very anonymous and very abstract, which is all that Jeff VanderMeer writes. Apparently, I haven't read his other books, but I watched a podcast or listened to a podcast. So this one specifically is about the characters going, okay, the book before it, in Authority. This is a spoiler for the ending of Authority. Area X expanded. So characters are already in this anomaly, and they're trying to figure out how to get out and figure out how this world works. It focuses on the acceptance of change. It does a bunch of flashbacks to this character who died in the first book and about her life before the anomaly started and how she tries to study it after. And in the end, she's trying to accept the change of this anomaly because it really impacted her life. and the others are trying to accept the change of the anomaly because they're, I can't really give away much without spoilers, but everyone's completely different from Area X, and it's just amazing. I need to reread it and annotate it. For now, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I really, really want to give it a 5 out of 5, but it's too abstract. I need to see the words and be able to study it and spend days thinking about it. I just did the audiobook and I read it in like 3 days, or listened to it in 3 days. And in the podcast I listened to, a guy's, I can't read this. A guy said a Jeff VanderMeer book isn't something you should read in under 30 hours, and I totally agree. I think if I could read this and spend more time on it, I would love it. I would eat that shit up. But because I couldn't, that's why it's a 3 out of 5. Because I was confused most of the time as well. So I really, really need to buy this series and annotate the shit out of it, because it is amazing. It's just hard to focus because there's a lot of big vocabulary and I have a little vocabulary mind, and I need to see words to understand what they are. I need to see this book on paper to understand it. And it's just very abstract things because it's a sci-fi, but I was looking online and apparently it's also technically like a weird genre, or new weird, which kind of makes sense because it was weird, but I didn't think that was a genre. It actually fits this guy's personality or books so well. Although apparently all his books are completely different. We'll see how that goes. I'm reading Hummingbird Salamander right now, and so far I feel the same vibes, but I do see how it's different. Okay, I love how this book focused on more in-depth stories and characterization of each character, because other books was setting up the story, it needed it to be abstract, which you don't really understand why it needs to be abstract until the end. Like, the main character in the first book is called the biologist, and I don't think you ever learn her name. And then in Acceptance you kind of learn why everything is abstract and like that, why there's just the biologist or the linguist or the psychologist. I felt like I could still connect to the characters when it was abstract, but then when it's not abstract, I loved learning more about them. So yeah. Next one was Before I Let Go by Marieke Nijkamp. This was a teen fiction, but I still really liked it, and I think I might read her other book. This is about these people who live in Alaska, I'm pretty sure, in this forgotten town. These two girls were best friends growing up, but then one of them had to move away to Canada. And so the one who still lives in Alaska in this very small town struggles with bipolar and mania and suicide. The friend who moved to Canada was coming to visit, but like, I think it's a couple days before she's supposed to visit, she finds out her friend died. And so she goes to the town to give her, to mourn, give her remorse, and she figures out why her friend died, and maybe it wasn't a suicide. I gave this a 2 out of 5, and a really good premise, but I did not like how it was executed. It was an okay ending. I read a review and someone was like, I kind of knew that it would end this way, and I still didn't like how it was executed. And I agree. I knew it was going to end that way, but it was just very off-putting, I guess. It didn't feel smooth or right. I felt like this was kind of a good show of someone with bipolar. It showed how friends deal with their friends who are bipolar pretty well. Because as a teenager, you don't know what the fuck is going on. Your friend who is struggling with these very strong emotions, you don't know what to do. And so at first I was angry. I was like, why is this girl kind of almost ignoring her friend? Like, she talks about when her friend has her lows, she wants to isolate from everyone, and she just lets her. She goes to hang out with other people. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, isolation is when you need company the most, even though the other person doesn't want it. And I'm saying that from someone who does isolate, and I need to remind myself, oh, I need company because this is just a bad path. But then as someone who dealt with this before and dealt with like the constant abandonment, as a teenager, I would just let go. I I didn't know what to do. I felt like it was easier to just let my friend be sad on their own, because as a teenager you don't know how to do that. Even as an adult you don't know how to do that. Anyways, it's pretty good, but it wasn't. It's still a 2 out of 5. And the book has some cool details inside of it, like these frosty looking pages, and then these letters written in scribbly format that Kira sends Corey, and then the phone calls that happen throughout the book. Last book I read, I didn't write anything down because I finished it like on February 28th. But it was the second book in the Maid series, and it's called The Mystery Guest. And I really like this one. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 as well. This one is about Molly, and there's another murder in her hotel, and she figures it out. Now, the reason why I don't think the relationship with her husband could really fit in this book is because he's gone. He's visiting his family, and so she has no time for a relationship. But I really like this mystery. I liked the variety of more characters that we had that were more wholesome than the other book, and I liked how it ended. It was amazing, and I loved how she built her relationship more with, I can't remember her name, Detective something. See, it's not written down, so I don't remember it, but the detective started with an SH. I know that. I think there was a P. Detective Sharp? Was it Sharp? I just want to explain that when I hear a name that I don't recognize the spelling of, it's so hard for me to remember. I can like listen to the books and understand all the characters, but then if I don't know the spelling, all I can think of is this character with these letters in their name. Like, this character, I'm pretty sure it's Detective Sharp, but I remember SHRP, like those letters sound familiar. That's kind of what I mean by if I can see the spelling, I'll remember the name. The detective's name is Stark. The mystery guest, the one who gets murdered, which is not really a spoiler because it happens like right in the beginning of the book, is an author named J.D. Grimthorpe. See, I wouldn't have remembered that because I didn't know how to spell it. J.D. Grimthorpe, and all I could think about was J.D. Salinger. And so it did these chapters where it went back in time and talked about like events in Molly's past, and it mentioned J.D. Grimthorpe, and I'm like, oh my god, he has the same name as the author who died. But it was the same author, because I just kept thinking J.D. Salinger. So like, that was silly. I like how she built her relationship with her, and the detective was like, okay, you do have strengths and weaknesses, and I'm not going to look down on you anymore because you think differently. I also love the colors of the books. So cool. Also, I got this at a book house, book drop thingy. I got that at that. So that's how I read it. I'm like, this is actually amazing. Now I want to buy this book. And then there's a novella that's green, so it fits the vibe. And it's a Christmas mystery. So I really want to read that. That gives me Agatha Christie vibes, you know. That was February. It was pretty good. I'd say the average was a 3 out of 5, so it was okay. I read a lot, and I mostly liked all the books, so that's good. Now, these are all the spoilers. Wicked! Sorry. I'm sorry. Wicked spoilers. I hate Bach. I already explained that. I hate him so much. He doesn't know boundaries. In the books, he likes Glinda, and he wants, this isn't really shown in the movies, and he wants to have a relationship with her no matter what, and it is so annoying. And he's like, okay, I'll just keep trying, even though she says no. And she legit says, she's like, I'll be your friend, but nothing more. And he's like, okay, no, not even that. It's not even I'll be your friend. She says, I'll be nice to you when I see you and I won't make fun of you. And he's like, that's not good enough. I need to be your friend if I can't be your boyfriend. And it is so annoying. Oh my god. And then Dr. Dilmon's story. In the book, he's murdered, whereas in the movie, he's just taken to, and the play, he's taken to prison because he's an animal with a job, and he goes so crazy that he forgets how to speak. Yeah, I like his murder one more because it makes more sense to silence him that way. I understand some people go so crazy that they can't speak, but I feel like it's just too like stereotypical, or I don't know. The scenario I want to compare this to is like a woman is being crazy, so you take her to an insane asylum, or you get her a lobotomy, and all of a sudden she's perfectly fine, and she's actually still crazy because the root of the problem is not figured out. It's kind of like that. It's like, oh, the lobotomy fixed her, you know? That's what I think of when they say imprisoning the goat makes him not want to talk anymore. That just makes no sense. It makes more sense to silence him by killing him. I feel like Elphaba wanting to get vengeance for his murder makes a lot more sense than vengeance for his imprisonment, which like both are bad, but yeah, I just like the murder more. The ending, Elphaba said she wanted forgiveness, and that was all. And I feel like she kind of got it, because instead of being like others forgiving her, she was given the chance to forgive others, like her dad for being a douchebag. And hi Chewie, you're so cute. Okay, and she can forgive her sister until for always. Why does she forgive her sister? I don't remember. She can forgive her sister for always one-upping her. I don't know. I got too distracted. This is why I closed the door. Can I do this while petting the dogs? Yeah, I feel like Elphaba got her forgiveness in the end because she got the chance to forgive. And I think she did. I don't remember. But I just felt like her wish was granted. The wizard is like America because when things got bad and he was exposed for all the shitty things he's doing, he ran away in his hot air balloon, which was his symbol for saving the city. He brought the air balloon into Emerald City and everyone was like, this man saved us. But he was all a hoax. He was never held accountable for his problems. I think these are just some sad things I wrote. I wrote very vague and ambiguous things. It just says Elphaba didn't get a soul is the assumption. The whole time she was just like, I want a soul, I want a soul, you know. And like when she talked to her son or something, I don't know, that's what I remember. She wanted a soul. So I guess the assumption was that she didn't have a soul, and she died quickly and suddenly, and she never got the shoes. I don't know why I wrote this down. I think she wanted the shoes to prove herself, get approval from her family in a way, because if she had the shoes, then technically she was getting something from her dad, even though they were her sisters and she was taking them from her sister. Or maybe it was like living her sister's legacy because her sister died wearing the shoes, but I don't know. Pregnancy of Liv? I didn't know that was a thing. I felt like it was kind of dumb how Gregory wrote it. I think this is a very good portrayal of how men used to write and still kind of write women, is very obliviously. How the fuck are you going to be pregnant and then but be in a coma? Okay, that makes sense. But then not remember giving birth because like the drug she was on or something like that? That makes no sense. you would remember giving birth. And she always just like assumes it's her child, I think, but she doesn't feel the motherly love towards him. And yeah, I just didn't like that plot line, but I liked how she had a son. That was nifty. Fate breaker spoilers. I didn't like how the villain was defeated. Pretty much how he was defeated is that trope of, which I noticed Victoria Aveyard writes a lot of tropes, but bear with me, like with my explaining. It's the trope of the bad guy realizes he wants to be good, and so he is. And that's stupid in my opinion. I guess it's good, gives him redemption, blah blah blah, but I don't like it. Like, his whole motive is just to be a bad guy. She tries to give, Terraston is the villain's name, she tries to give him a reason by saying, like, he wants to be a bad guy because he wasn't better than his twin. And his twin got all the glory and got to live with the immortals, and he had to live like an orphan and in the army and all this shit. And now he gets his time to shine by opening all the realms and destroying their realm, all Lord. But then he falls in love with the queen, who wants just to expand her empire. And then he's like, I want to be good to protect her and love her. And I did really like their romance story, their love story, but I didn't like how it went from 0 to 100 kind of fast. It did have a build-up, but all of a sudden he was gonna die for her. It just didn't feel right. I understood when he gave up a chance to kill an immortal to save her life, the queen, Erida, but I didn't like that he gave up his whole mission of the whole series so that the god he's been working with this whole time won't kill Erida. That was dumb. So he pretty much helped the heroes in the end, which I really wanted the heroes to do it on their own, because throughout the whole story they had these ups and downs and trials of like, how can they get out of this? How do they do this? And then all of a sudden it comes to the very end, this whole thing they've been working towards, and a big reason of why they win is because the villain helps them. I didn't like that. The character who did the betrayal and who was sus, what? I feel like I shouldn't say it. Okay, I won't say who it was, but I'll like explain a little bit, see if you can figure it out. But it makes so much sense because the castle just didn't have security, and like that makes no sense. And Terraston somehow got the sword that opens realms, like he just walked in and got it. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. He just gets in the castle with his like corpse army. It doesn't make sense. I don't know how, like, not as in doesn't make sense as in I didn't like it. Like, I loved it. I just don't know how I didn't piece it together. It was amazing. It was so obvious who helped him. Now the fake death. I hate fake deaths so much. I hate it. And I love when important characters die because I feel like it makes a story better. Like when died in Harry Potter. Was that a spoiler? If you don't know that, get off my channel. Just kidding. Okay, Harry Potter spoiler. When Sirius died in Harry Potter, that was devastating, but it was important. It made the story good. It gave Harry Potter more depth, the character and the story. It was good. So I like when important characters die, and I was waiting for that. Because when Blade Breaker, the second book, was written, Victoria Aveyard gave us spoilers on her Instagram, and she said a character was gonna die. And so throughout the whole book, I was figuring out who I felt like was going to die. And then the person that died was one of the least a dumb character. They weren't dumb, they were badass. But their death I didn't feel anything. It was sad. Those who had to mourn, like, it was sad watching them mourn, and it did add to the plot and, like, everyone's motives, but as a reader, I didn't give a fuck. I wanted someone important to die so I could bawl my eyes out on the page and be able to see my tears, the crumpled, the paper all whooshied in the future from my tears. So when there was a death of an important character, I was sad, but I was also happy, especially because a lot of the time these characters are kind of seen as invincible. I guess not necessarily invincible, but extremely resilient, right? Crazy shit happens to them. These two characters literally jump out of a burning castle and survive. That's crazy. So it was nice to see one of the characters was finally dying, especially in the main battle. Then it was fake. It was real. They came back to life. Or I guess they didn't come back to life. They just were healed. As much as I hate it, I'm glad this character lived. I think an important character did need to die, and if they died, it still would have been a great story. But that the fact that they lived and I got another scene of them in a romantic scene literally made me so happy. They were so cute. The next one was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. The love interest, Henry, I relate to him, especially after his wish, because what he wished for was to be loved. And so what the devil, or the dark, I forgot, he's called the dark in this book, what he did was he made Henry loved. Like, when everyone sees him, they love him, but they don't exactly love the real him. And I kind of feel that. I feel like a lot of people like me, but no one exactly loves me. I struggle with those who are close to me, and I struggle to let people close to me because I know I'm bitchier. I love what she does in the ending. So how it ends, the dark. Oh, so Henry's deal actually ends in a year. So he's gonna give up his soul in a year after he chooses to be loved. But then he meets Addie, and he remembers Addie. No one remembers Addie, but he does. Because the dark, we actually find out later, the dark wanted to fuck with Addie. And so they have this great relationship, and then he's like, girl, I'm actually gonna die. I have to give up my soul. I'm so sorry. And then she convinces the dark. She's like, I will be yours for however long you want. If you don't take his soul, like, I will be yours. And so he does. Henry gets to live on. The dark has Addie, and so those two are happy, but Addie isn't because she doesn't want to be with the dark. They had a little bit of a romance, like, I think like 60 years before the present, but she doesn't like the dark, or she doesn't love the dark. So she plans on driving him insane like a bad bitch would in a betrothed marriage or a forced marriage. I love that. Next up, The Handmaid's Tale. There's this place called Jezebel's. Jezebel's. I should have looked up how to say this beforehand. I didn't. I think it's Jezebel's. There's a book called that. It's pretty much a brothel that Fred gets taken to in The Handmaid's Tale. Remember the main character? And so I looked up who was Jezebel, and apparently she was a girl boss in the Bible. Her name is referred or used when people are trying to explain a femme fatale or a man-eater, which fits perfectly because you find out in the brothel of Fred sees Moria, her best friend, and she goes to talk to her, and I don't know, it's not in depth explained, but this is pretty much an organization where women are a lot more free, as free as you can be in this world. They don't have the threat of being hanged, kind of, I think, and they don't have the threat of being sent to the colonies. Instead, they're just sex workers. And it really makes sense how it's a femme fatale or man-eater, because the women use this to their advantage and they get information out of men to help I can't remember what it's called. It's like, they call it underground something. It's like the Underground Railroad, but for getting women out of patriarchal society. The quote that I was saying before, that I tell, therefore I am, of Fred uses this to put existence into her daughter, because she actually has a daughter, and a big plot of this is she's trying to find her daughter. She never does, which is heartbreaking, but she's trying to find her daughter. She's writing it down. She doesn't put the name down. Even when she talks about, Fred talks about her husband, she puts a fake name down, because I said this before, she wants to preserve their names, keep it private. But she's saying, I think, therefore you are. Remember, the philosopher said, I think, therefore I am. He means, like, because he can think for himself, he exists. Like, his thinking proves his existence. She is saying because she can think of her daughter exists. And that's just giving her hope that her daughter is still alive and she can find her. But even then, because she thinks of her daughter's story lives on, which is amazing and beautiful. I think that just explains history and how legends are born. Just kidding. But I love that. I love that so much. That's all I have for spoilers. Some books that are going to be in the March video. One I already finished is Darling Rose Gold. Some that I have started reading was Hummingbird Salamander. I'm still reading Beartown. I actually kind of took a break from Beartown so that I can read Red Queen real quick. Or not Red Queen, the second book in the Red Queen series. Glass Sword. I kind of started reading The Banker's Wife, but just one chapter. 2 chapters? I don't know. I love to read books and then stop them, and I love reading 5 books at a time. So yeah, those are my plans for March. My goal is to read at least, I think I wanted to read 6, but I don't remember. Anyways, cool. If you got to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you so much. I worked so hard on this, and I feel bad that it's an hour long, but you know, I'm really only making this for myself and really hoping people watch it. But yeah, thank you so much. Let me know what your thoughts are, and come back in April to watch the March video. Thank you.